Imagine this for a second. A company selling millions of cars every single year. A company with a history going back more than 200 years. A company that conquered Europe, became a national symbol of France, and spread its name to over 160 countries. Peugeot, the lion of the French auto industry. The pride of Paris. In the 1970s and 80s, Peugeot wasn't just another car maker. It was an economic powerhouse. But here's the twist. When Peugeot set its eyes on the biggest prize of all, then the big United States, the land that decides who's a giant and who's just a pretender, they failed. Miserably. After decades of trying, Peugeot pulled out of America in defeat. So the question is, how could a company that dominated Europe collapse in the US? Was it the cars? The marketing? The Americans themselves? Or was it something deeper, a cultural mismatch that Peugeot never saw coming? That's what we're going to uncover in today's episode. The year was 1958. America was the world's biggest car market. Every European brand wanted in. Volkswagen had already taken the US by storm with the Beetle. Mercedes and BMW were carving out their niches in luxury. And Peugeot thought, why not us? They entered the market with the Peugeot 403 and later the 404, elegant, compact, fuel-efficient cars. A total contrast to the massive American V8s roaming the highways. And at first, it worked. Peugeot gained a small but loyal following, especially among Europeans living in the States who loved the French design and engineering. What set Peugeot apart was its refusal to copy the Americans. While Detroit was pumping out huge muscle cars, Peugeot stuck with its signature style, small, refined, and fuel-efficient. But their real secret weapon? Diesel. Peugeot was one of the very first brands to bring diesel cars to America, the Peugeot 504 diesel in particular. And when the oil crisis hit in 1973, when gas prices skyrocketed and Americans suddenly started caring about fuel economy, Peugeot's timing looked perfect. The 504 diesel became a legend, a car known to last 300,000 miles without breaking a sweat. And sales jumped. For a moment, it seemed like Peugeot had cracked the American code. Through the 1970s, Peugeot was selling tens of thousands of cars in the US. The 504 earned a cult following. The 505 that followed was stylish, practical, and found its own fans. But under the surface, the problems were starting. See, Americans had expectations. When you bought a European car, you paid a little more, but in return, you got quality. Mercedes gave you luxury. BMW gave you performance. Even Volkswagen had its quirky charm, Peugeot. It started earning a reputation for being unreliable. Electrical problems, transmission issues, and most of all, terrible after-sales support. Imagine buying a car, only to wait weeks, sometimes months, for a single replacement part. That was Peugeot in America. And in a country where consumers expect things fast, reliable, and hassle-free, that was a disaster. Peugeot's biggest strategic mistake in America wasn't just the cars. It was the service. Ford, Chevy, Chrysler, they had dealer networks everywhere. Even the Japanese brands like Toyota and Honda built strong service networks from day one. Peugeot? A few hundred dealers. Many of them small, underfunded, and poorly trained. So when your Peugeot broke down, and it often did, you were stuck. Parts unavailable. Mechanics confused. Weeks without your car. And once American buyers had that experience, they never came back. By the 1980s, America was a brutal battlefield. The big three, Ford, GM, and Chrysler, dominated the local market with cheap, big family cars. The Japanese Toyota, Honda, Nissan were unstoppable, offering small, ultra-reliable, fuel-efficient cars at great prices. And in the luxury market, Mercedes and BMW had already cemented their image. So here's the question. Where did Peugeot fit? It wasn't the cheapest. It wasn't the most reliable. It wasn't the most luxurious. It was stuck in the middle, and that's the worst place to be. The numbers tell the story. In 1984, Peugeot sold around 20,000 cars in America. By 1990? Barely 4,000. For a global giant like Peugeot, that was unsustainable. In 1991, Peugeot announced its complete withdrawal from the U.S. market. After more than 30 years of trying, the dream was over. No farewell party. No big goodbye. Just gone. Peugeot's story in America is more than just a business failure. It's a case study in strategy. Success in Europe doesn't guarantee success in the U.S. If you don't build a strong service and parts network, you're finished. American consumers don't wait. If you can't deliver reliability and support, they'll switch to someone who can. And maybe most importantly, you can't just show up with European charm and expect Americans to fall in love. You need to truly understand the market. Today, Peugeot is still a major force in Europe. Its cars are everywhere, and its legacy is strong. But in America, it's a ghost. A name remembered only by car enthusiasts and a few unlucky owners. Peugeot entered America with confidence, thinking its global power would be enough. Instead, it walked away with one of the most painful failures in auto history. And that is the untold story of why Peugeot never made it in the land of the free. Honestly, when I started digging into Peugeot's story in the U.S., I realized it's one of those perfect examples that prove something important. Success in one market doesn't automatically mean success in another. In Europe, Peugeot was a giant, a household name. Millions of cars sold, decades of heritage, and in France, it wasn't just a brand, it was part of the national identity. Owning a Peugeot in Europe was normal, almost expected. But when Peugeot stepped into America, it was a completely different battlefield. The U.S. car market has its own set of rules. American buyers don't just care about design or efficiency, they care about reliability, service, and convenience. They want a car that works without headaches, a dealer that can fix problems right away, and parts that are always available. That's where Peugeot stumbled badly. It wasn't only about mechanical issues or electrical problems. It was about how Peugeot failed to understand the American consumer mindset. In the U.S., people had choices everywhere. If you wanted affordable and bulletproof, you went to Toyota or Honda. If you wanted luxury, you went to Mercedes or BMW. If you wanted big family cars, you stuck with Ford or GM. So, why would anyone pick Peugeot? The brand didn't have a clear, standout reason. And the service network? That was the nail in the coffin. Imagine buying a car, then waiting weeks, sometimes months, for a simple replacement part. In a country like America, that's unacceptable. People expect fast, reliable service. Peugeot couldn't deliver it. In my opinion, Peugeot entered the U.S. market with too much confidence, maybe even arrogance. They thought their European success would translate easily across the Atlantic. But business doesn't work like that. Success comes from adapting, from understanding your audience, from proving why your product matters in their daily lives. Peugeot never figured that out in America. For me, the big lesson here is simple. The U.S. market doesn't forgive mistakes. Look at the Japanese brands that thrived: Toyota, Honda, Nissan. They didn't succeed by accident. They earned trust by building reliable cars, offering affordable prices, and setting up massive dealer networks to back them up. Peugeot didn't do that, and the market punished them for it. Today, Peugeot is still a strong brand in Europe, and it has global recognition. But in America, it's just a memory, a failed attempt, a story enthusiasts talk about. My personal take? Peugeot didn't fail because it was weak. It failed because it underestimated the American market. And in the U.S., if you underestimate the consumer, you get pushed out of the game, fast and without mercy.